welcome to the Unstuck and Happy podcast. We all get stuck, but how long you stay there is up to you. I'm your host, John Polish, founder of the Unstuck Happiness Conference. And this is the show where we interview people who've overcome tremendous adversity and have emerged as leaders. So if you need a little inspiration and hope in your day, get ready, because here comes another great Unstuck story. So I know if you've been listening to our first few episodes of the podcast, you're probably wondering, where is Sheryl? And Sheryl has done just about everything related to Unstuck along with me. And today she's our guest. So welcome, Sheryl Green.
Thank you. I'm still dancing to your intro music. It's bringing out my inner Muppet.
Well, wait till you see the video that goes along with it. You'll see, I got a little video of Beamer trying to make his way over a tote so he can get upstairs. Beamer being my puppy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hysterical. Talk about stuck. He was stuck. So, Sheryl, we're going to get to what you're doing these days here in a little bit. But when it comes to living unstuck, I started these conferences in 2016. So it's been 4 years now. And a couple months before the first conference, I met you for the first time. And when I heard your story, it was amazing. And what was really amazing is that there's no way we can look at you and know what you had been through. It just doesn't show. So tell us a little bit about what got you into the speaking profession.
Yeah. So it kind of all goes back to 2008. I was, I'm not going to say I was happily married, but I was married and I was living in North Carolina. And on the outside, it just looked like I had, the perfect life, I guess, or the great American life that we're all shooting for. Huge house, job, adorable dog, and the husband. And I thought everything was good. And I kind of ignored all those warning signs that we all like to ignore in our lives. And one day I couldn't ignore them any longer. I got a phone call while I was at my job. I was probably a little bit before lunch. And it was my husband. And he said, just 4 words that I'll never forget, because you can't forget when they change your life completely. He said, "I'm in big trouble." And running out of the building, because I was not supposed to have my phone in the office. I ran out and I got into the parking lot and what is going on? And I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around what's happening. And he said, I was arrested for soliciting a minor online. I'm not really sure that there's anything, any news that you can get that kind of rocks your world quite like that. I just collapsed. I'm not proud of it. You hope that when something happens, you're going to be strong. And I guess after that I was, but just, kind of kneeling on the floor in the parking lot, just broken, completely and utterly broken. And I got up, I spoke to my boss, I drove hysterical crying, which I've actually coined a term for that called criving. It's crying and driving, because I do it so much. Yeah.
Not crying and driving?
Crying and driving. Yeah. Okay. Criving.
Driving, not thriving. Got it.
Right. Yeah. So I crived all my way to find where he was, and got his mom to come down to North Carolina to help deal with things, because I think I knew right away, not only could I not deal with this completely by myself, but I was out.
Of course.
I was just out. I know I'd grown up, I'm the child of divorced parents, and I always assumed that I would be married forever. I decided once I did it, I'm not going anywhere. Like I want to stick with it. And this wasn't something you stick with.
No, for sure.
So, so I think I knew just from that moment, like, it's over. Like, I'm going to pick up the pieces of my life. And the next morning I got up, I went to the doctor and I got tested for everything you can possibly get tested for, because I didn't know if this was the first time he'd ever even tried to stray. So thankfully it was good there. Went and I bailed him out of jail and I got out of there. I went up to see my cousin because my address and my license plate number on my car were in the newspaper, and there were news vans parked outside my house. And it wasn't something I was going to deal with. So went up to Virginia to see my cousin for a little while, down to Virginia. Geography is still not my strong suit. And stayed there for a couple of days. And then my parents came out to kind of pack up all my stuff and drove cross country with the dog. She was the only really good part of my life, with Akasha and my stepmom, and moved to Vegas. So took a while, pretty deep depression, as one can imagine, going through a bankruptcy and a divorce and living in a place where you don't know anyone and your world has just been turned upside down. And I got into animal rescue, which I'm sure will come up at some point during this talk, but I'll just leave it there for right now. And then after a while, I decided that I wanted to be a speaker. I figured that I had a message to share with people about kind of getting kicked in the face and getting back up stronger.
So let's go back to that for a minute. This is an interesting interview for me because you and I have done 7 Unstuck conferences together. I'm the current president of National Speaker Association, and Sheryl's worked alongside me with that. And we are releasing our documentary movie Unstuck and Happy soon. So I feel like I know your story sometimes more than you. So it was really hard for me to mouth along with you as you're telling your story. Right. But parts of your story we haven't really talked about. If we can go back for a little bit, I know what he did, but who were you back then? Tell us a little bit about what you were like then.
Well, I didn't like me back then.
I'm talking before this happened.
I wasn't a bad person at all. I had very, very low self-esteem. And it was one of those things, I kind of knew he wasn't the right person for me from day one. We joked around when our friend introduced us, his nickname was Hip Hop, and I always leave his real name out of it, but his nickname was Hip Hop, and I was goth at the time. So my friend, when she introduced us, she said, "By the way, I'm not trying to set you up. I just think you guys would be good friends." So it was like from day one, it was positioned as we're not supposed to end up together. But he liked me, and I didn't really like me very much at that moment. So having someone else who wanted to be around me and who cared about me and who loved me, I overlooked everything. I overlooked the fact that he came into the relationship with massive amounts of debt. I overlooked the, victim mentality that everything happened to him. And just the complete lack of maturity and spending too much and just all of these like warning signs. Sorry, I trailed off your question. I was shy and I was meek. And I didn't have a lot of faith in my abilities. And I was too busy listening to what everybody else thought I should do with my life to actually listen to myself.
So how did this event change that?
It was the kick in the butt I needed, honestly. I talk about that universal kick in the ass. Sorry, I'm going to curse people. But, you get to that point where it's like, you just can't ignore things anymore. You just can't put a sock over your eyes and think, no, I don't see what's going on. And it gave me an amazing gift, which people always kind of cringe when I talk about that because they're like, whoa, your husband did what? And you think it's a good thing. But it gave me that opportunity to start over. And I think it's just been kind of a growing process. And I don't see myself that different right now from 5-6 years ago. But the people that have known me, throughout this transformation are all like, no, you're a completely different person, even from 5 years ago. So it's a process. I think I finally I got the kick in the butt I needed.
So 5 years ago, we're in 2020. 5 years ago was 2015.
Yeah.
This all happened in 2009.
This happened in 2008.
2008.
Yep.
So from 2008 to 2015, what were those 7 or 8 years like there?
Oh, it was a hot mess. No, I'm
So nothing's changed.
A little bit. Oh, thank you. This is why I love you, John. It's really just been a growing experience. Through the animal rescue has been just a huge part of it. Learning a whole bunch of skills and learning that I have worth. I have abilities in this world, and I have gifts that I can share through writing. Writing has been a huge, cathartic process for me. Starting out, I wrote novels. And I always like to say it's fun to write mystery novels because you get to kill the people in your life that really pissed you off. Ironically, I have never written my ex-husband into a book. So,
that you know of. Subconsciously, maybe, right?
No, I really haven't. I'm not angry with him. I'm so grateful that I can't be angry. Plus I get to make super fun jokes at his expense all the time. So, it's just a win-win for me.
But you were angry for a while, I would assume.
I wasn't.
No?
I wasn't. I was broken. I was straight up broken. I actually tried staying friends with him. My stepmom almost threw me out of the car on the drive from North Carolina to Vegas because half the time I was crying, half the time I was laughing, and the entire time I'm texting with him. And she literally was ready to throw me out the window. She's like, how are you even talking to him? But I was so kind of indoctrinated into this, you have to take care of people mentality and this codependency that I actually spoke about at one of the Unstucks, that I thought it was my responsibility, and I thought it was I'm even going to say privilege to take care of him. So I tried staying friends until finally the poor woe is me. What's woe is me? Whatever that is.
Poor is me is a whole nother. That's a whole nother episode. We have that one coming too.
Until that woe is me attitude really just hit me, and I was like, I'm done. No more. I can't do this. So yeah, I don't think I was ever really angry with him, except maybe for that attitude. Just this didn't all happen to you. You made decisions that brought you here. So, and that's something that I've tried to kind of embody with myself, is that I made decisions that put me there. And hopefully now I'm making better decisions that put me elsewhere.
We all have to deal with that from time to time. I know I'm certainly gone through that myself, and not being angry is a challenge at times too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get there. So you mentioned writing was therapeutic for you.
Yeah.
And I have found that being creative in any way, shape, or form is helpful. And for me, it was writing as well, which is super funny because I was the person who refused to read. And before I knew it, I was writing books before I was reading them. But you started writing fiction.
I did.
Why fiction? You had such a story to tell. Why not tell your story? Why fiction?
So first of all, I was raised on a steady diet of James Patterson. So I always read mystery novels growing up. And as I mentioned, I was goth. So I had kind of a dark side to me. And I went to school for forensic psychology. So kind of all these things, just came together into like, okay, Sheryl's going to talk about some dark stuff. And I took a couple of classes at the community college when I moved out here, because I literally knew no one besides my parents. And one of the classes I took was writing fiction. And it was this amazing, amazing professor who really encouraged just to get any story you had out. Mr. Cawley, I loved him, and I actually dedicated one of my books to him. But he had us start with some like short stories and things like that. And I don't know, I wasn't ready to tell my story yet, because I don't think I'd actually figured it out. I just wasn't there yet. But I was ready to deal with some stuff in my childhood and kill off some people that had not treated me very nicely. So that was really cool. But I wrote 3 novels. I skipped over the, most people, start out with the short stories and the articles and things like that and try to get those published. I was like, nope, I'm doing a book. And it took me almost 3.5 years to write that first one, which PS, I am editing as we speak. And that very first book, the very first novel I ever wrote, will be released this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thanks.
So how many books have you written now?
I've written and published 4. Just get out of the way for that. I've written 7 total. So there are 3.
So the 3 fiction and then the 4 that.
Yeah.
Tell us the titles of these books real quick.
So I like really short titles. So we've got Surviving to Thriving, How to Overcome Setbacks and Rock Your Life. Once Upon a Bottom Line, Harnessing the Power of Storytelling in Sales. Do Good to Do Better, the Small Business Guide to Growing Your Business by Helping Nonprofits, and then book writing for busy people.
So that's kind of all over the place, isn't it? Right?
It is. Yeah. I've been all over the place, truthfully. I've done a lot of things in my life, and people tell you, you've heard this when you get into the speaking field, that you're not a speaker, you're an expert, and you should look at your life and what are you an expert in? And the first thing I realized I was an expert in was getting knocked on my ass and getting back up stronger and better for it. So I kind of started out with resilience, and that was when I finally told my story. And that was when I shared, what I've been through and how the many tools that I've used to get through it. And it's still my favorite book. I love it because I get to help people that are hurting. And I know that feeling, that when somebody is in pain and they're going through a difficult time in their life, like, it is so cool to be able to hand a book to someone and say, I know this will help you. And it has. It's helped a lot of people.
I remember sitting on a beach in Hawaii trying to read your book. And I say trying only because I know you so well that as I'm reading it, I can hear every sarcastic tone, and I'm reading it in your voice, which was interesting. And most people would look at your 4 books that you've published and think, wow, they're all over the place. But knowing your story the way that I do, I can see exactly the continuity between them, in that your passion has always been in animals, helping animals. And that's what helps you to survive and thrive, essentially, which is the title of the first one, right? And so telling stories, working with animal nonprofits, and doing good for others, they all are very, very in line with who you are. Just from a consumer's perspective, it might seem like it's confusing, but knowing you, there's a very straight line between all of them.
I appreciate that, because I didn't necessarily see that straight line. No, everything really boils down to, when I was at my lowest point during my depression, my stepmom gave me advice and it stuck with me. And I believe that it is both the most important thing you can do in your personal life and the most important thing you can do in your business. And that's do something for someone else. I was stuck. I was wallowing. I was in a bad place and I couldn't see beyond myself. And that was what she told me to do. And I went and I saved animals and then I brought it into businesses and yeah.
I think the exact words were, if you want to help yourself, go help someone else. Mm-hmm. I've heard that in my head for the last 4 years constantly.
John, you should have just set up a cardboard cutout of me and you could have interviewed yourself. That would have been fun.
But that absolutely is great advice. And that, I was looking at that the other day and I don't know why sometimes my mind just wanders and roams off in totally different directions. And I was thinking about that idea of heroes. What is a hero? And you look at like the superheroes. And superheroes always had something really bad happen to them, but then they end up using it for good. Yeah. And in every superhero, there are these villains, the arch nemesis, who also had bad things happen and also endowed with certain powers. And the difference between the two are the villain is doing whatever they can for themselves to make themselves try to feel better. And the superhero is literally using that power to help someone else. And I remember you doing a speech on superheroes.
Yeah, that was oh my goodness. That was not my best work. But yeah, that was the NSA graduation speech for the Academy. And there is nothing more terrifying than standing up in front of, never mind your peers, but people that are so many years ahead of you in an industry that you hope to break into and bearing your soul. Like that might have been one of the scariest moments of my life.
You think?
Yeah. But hey, some people, Ed actually tweeted something I said that day. So I was like, woo.
Well, I did mine the year before you, and we had 4 of us that were supposed to speak 20 minutes, like 15 minutes apiece. And then we had a headliner come up and speak after us. And I was going last right before the headliner. And the headliner was none other than Hall of Famer Scott McCain. And so I'm speaking right before Scott. And then the guy who was going before me, since we had 4 of us and 1 dropped out, that guy took it upon himself to take the other woman's 15 minutes. So he turned his 15-minute speech into like a 40-minute speech.
Oh.
And everyone's looking at me like, are you going to keep it short? So then I go up and basically I'm like going right before, Scott. So that's not intimidating at all. If you know who Scott is, he's an amazing
Better
speaker.
Before than after.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's funny. I still go back to that speech a lot, and it was a great experience for me. So let's go there. How did you get to the point where you wanted to share your story, and was it your story that got you into speaking? And I ask, was it your story? Because I've been around you enough to know that you quite often will, I don't want to say avoid the story, but it's not really your primary focus. So,
yeah. I think, I don't know how to answer that. So I'm just going to talk. So I started in Toastmasters. God, it's probably been about 8 or 9 years.
So what took you to Toastmasters? Let's go there. Why Toastmasters?
Sure. Yeah. So I joined the Las Vegas Writers Group. And because I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to, surround myself with people that were successful. And the president at the time, Richard Warren, I sent him cookies randomly every once in a while because he completely changed the course of my life. So he asked if I wanted to take a spot on the board and get more involved. And you know me, I'm always like, yes, give me more work to do. So I did, and I became the critique group organizer for the Las Vegas Writers Group. It was my job to connect people. And he said, okay, great. Now that you've accepted that, you have to stand up at every meeting and, explain what you do and get people involved. And I peed a little bit when he said that. because I was terrified of public speaking. Like as I mentioned, I was super shy. I would not talk to people I didn't know. If I met friends at a restaurant, like they would have to come out into the parking lot to meet me and bring me in because I wouldn't walk in by myself. Like it was that bad. And I was like, I can't stand up and talk. I literally will die. And he told me about Toastmasters. And I got in and it was just this like warm, wonderful place where people encouraged you, but it was safe to fail. And the very first time I walked in, they said, "Oh, you're a writer. Okay, so you're going to participate in the Tall Tales contest in 2 weeks." And, peed a little bit again. I was like, okay.
And it's just bringing me back to your never miss an opportunity speech.
Yeah.
Wow. People listening to this will have no clue what we're talking about, but
they're going to have to like go through the old, do we have archives for the Unstuck speeches?
There are.
So they're going to have to go read up on or watch up on that. But yeah, I went into Toastmasters. A contest is literally my first speech. And I won at the club level. And, the prize for winning is you get to do it again and face your fears, but on an even bigger stage. And I fell in love with it. The first time that I made people laugh from the stage and they were laughing with me, not at me, felt amazing. That was possibly the best feeling that I've ever experienced. And I realized that I wanted to be in front of people and I wanted to speak up and I wanted to share. And, I don't even, no, you're not the first time I told that story. Sorry. I took a class for the Moth, the storytelling
what now?
program, the Moth.
The Moth,
so,
okay.
Not the Moth.
Okay.
It's a storytelling thing on what's the NPR?
Okay.
So they have people come on. They have these story slams where you share something. And we had a guy come out from New York. He's a big teacher. He's a big experienced Moth storyteller. And he actually walked us through how to tell our stories. And then we did our own slam. And that's the first time I ever talked about my divorce on stage. And it touched people. It made them think about their own lives. It made certain things that they've been through easier to handle. And it inspired them to kind of move forward. And as soon as I realized that I could actually help people with the cluster that I had been through, I was like, well, this is what I do. I help others. And if it's through telling my story, then that's how I'm going to do it. And then you came along. So you gave me a stage to do it.
There was a step in between though. So Toastmasters is an international organization for people who want to become better speakers, essentially become more comfortable with speaking. You don't have to be a professional speaker to be in Toastmasters. A lot of people do it just for self-confidence or for their jobs or whatever. And then there's National Speakers Association, which is really for professional speakers, people who get paid to speak. And it's more about the business of speaking. So how did you make that transition from Toastmasters to saying, okay, I want to join National Speaker Association, go through their academy program? Mm-hmm. What were you thinking about speaking? Were you planning on telling your story then, or?
I got laid off. I had a great job and I got laid off because they couldn't afford me. And I realized I never wanted to feel like that again. And I know a lot of people are going through that right now. So this is probably a very timely message. But I just decided, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I have 6 months of unemployment coming to me. I am going to become a professional speaker. And one of my mentors at the time laughed at me. I said, I'm going to be a speaker. I have 6 months to do it. And he literally laughed at me. But then he put me in touch with someone who was involved with the NSA at the time. And I ended up, I missed the first week of the academy, but I jumped in and I got involved. And I'm not really sure that I worked on my message during that time, but I started to understand at least the foundation of the business and what you needed to have in place. And I made a lot of great connections. And honestly, that was the best part of the academy for me, was the people that were in my class, making friends with them. And then also everyone in the NSA is very kind and very giving to the academy members. So I, forged some bonds there.
Very cool. And so you'll be running the academy for here out, right? I'm kidding. Just volunteering her for work that she doesn't want to. It's somebody once asked me, like, how do you become a motivational speaker? And the response is really simple. Step one is you have to have a messed up life. Mm-hmm. You have to have something to talk about.
Yeah.
And I love the people. There are people that will come through the National Speaker Association all the time. That'll come to a meeting and think, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm like, great. So, what is it what's your platform? What are you speaking about? Why are you doing this? And my favorite answer is, well, I can talk about anything. Well, if you can talk about anything, you weren't called to this business. Like I truly believe that we're telling stories because we have to.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that something in you that says, I have to get this out, I have to share this with the world, then you're, probably a fan. You're searching for something, but somebody like yourself has a message and it has to get told. And I'm looking at the 4 books behind you, and like, there's a message that is an underlying theme in those 4 books. And those are just different avenues for you to share that same message.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I remember when I first started writing, you can tell every organization is going to have the people that are actually doing it, and then the people that really love to talk about it. And the writers group was no different. And I remember, I don't know who said it to me, but someone said, we don't write because we want to, we write because we have to.
Yeah.
And that's, it's the same thing for speaking. It's not a matter. Yeah, it's cool and it's fun. And I like being up on stage, even though I'm still a little bit terrified of it. But you have to, like, you've been given a gift, and it was wrapped in a lot of pain. But you've been given a gift to share with people. And I think it's irresponsible if you don't.
I remember my situation after we lost my daughter. My first wife turned to me and said that she someday was going to start. She's like, I'm going to be the next Beth Moore. I'm going to start writing books and speaking about this. And I remember looking at her and just saying, well, you know what? You go right ahead. I want no part of that. And hopping on my motorcycle and going for a ride. Like, that was it. Like, never imagined that this would happen. Yeah. And she made a comment to me at that time. She's like, you're going to do good things with or without me. And at the time, I just thought, I didn't think much of it. But now looking back, I've, written a few books and I'm speaking on a regular basis. And I think that we're called for it. I didn't choose it. If I would have chose it, then that would have been a perfect opportunity for me to say, yeah, I'll do that with you. And I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
But there comes a time when you just have to.
Yep, it does. And when you have somebody come up to you and tell you that they're better for having heard you speak, that their life has changed in some way, that they're healed in some way, or, at least on the road, you realize it's worth all the jitters going up to the stage.
And you don't have to necessarily be a speaker or an author. There's a lot of other ways that you can get your story out and influence people. Podcasting, writing blogs, number of different ways to influence. And you've done several of those things as well. What are you excited about these days? I know it's tough to be excited about anything as we're all locked up inside over coronavirus, but what are you looking forward to the most?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I feel the pain that the world is going through. I have my days. I think anybody that says that they're doing 100% awesome right now is just lying. But I think I'm just looking out my window right now because there's always someone walking by with a dog or with their kids. And that is what I've been focused on for the most part, is there are good things.
The dogs,
happening.
not the kids.
The dogs. Yeah. No,
I know you enough to know you're focused on the dogs.
I'm not looking at the kids, but I'm glad that they're spending time with the family.
Right.
No, I'm trying to focus on the fact that we're reconnecting right now as I don't even want to say human race, because we're connecting with animals and we're connecting with nature, and we've been given this opportunity. And yeah, it's hard and it sucks. And I know a ton of people are sick and have lost loved ones, and the finances are a cluster. But we're being given an opportunity right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we do as a culture with that opportunity. I hope that we learn from this, and I hope that we reconnect with what is important and we stay connected with that. Because there's nothing cooler than seeing people, they're baking and they're spending time with their family, and the dogs are so happy that we're all home. So I hope that I can help kind of, I don't want to say usher that in, because that sounds way bigger than anything I can accomplish in one life. But I hope that I can help facilitate that for people to realize that there's more to life than what we used to think. And we found it. So let's hold on to it.
Very good. Hopefully we found it. Some did.
Some did. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a few minutes left. I can't do this without the shameless plug. Being that you are the only other person who has been involved in every Unstuck conference, can you tell people what that is and what that means for people?
Yeah. The Unstuck Conference is not only a place for us as the speaker to share what we've been through and to share, it is a cathartic experience. It's not therapy for us. We're past that, but it's still cathartic. And it's a place for people to come and to learn and to grow and feel better about what they've been through and what they've experienced. But it's not just for the audience. And that's what has amazed me with every single conference that we've done is I have learned and I have grown from the other speakers. And, the obvious answer to that, or obvious example, is the guy who is in a car accident that was very similar to mine. The difference being I had my seatbelt on and I walked away with a tiny little scar, and he did not have his seatbelt on and did not walk away. And he's, now started a spinal foundation. I grew in that moment listening to him speak. And I know other people had heard me and heard what I'd been through, and they were on the husband side of something similar and actually called their ex-wife to apologize. So it's not just a place for the audience to learn and grow. It's for the speakers as well.
So one of the things that I get all the time is how can you guys go there and tell sad stories? Do you feel like there's any, my response is that nobody leaves there feeling sad?
Yeah, we're not still stuck in those situations. We're not still in those bad ways of being. I don't know how else to put that. We're up there because we've been through it, and we've, as I've used in many speeches, we've passed over the chasm of suckage. So we're now in the happy place, and we get to turn around and hold our hands out and help the next person through. So no, I've never seen anybody leave depressed or sad. They're always full of hope. And well, if they can go through what they've been through, I can do it too.
Awesome. So one final piece of advice for anybody who might be feeling stuck.
Go do something for someone else. I know it's hard to volunteer right now. I get that. But pick up the phone, write a card, do something for someone else, donate some money. It's not all about you. And that hurts to hear when you're in a bad place. But this world isn't all about us. It's about being part of this global community and sharing your life with everybody. So go do something for somebody else. Oh, and spay and neuter your pets.
Okay. Totally threw me on the last one there. I should have been expecting it, but
you should have. Yeah, seriously.
Okay. How can people find you?
Yeah. So I answer to bat signals shaped like dogs in the sky. But if you don't have one of those, then
back to the superheroes thing again. I see.
My website is sherylgreenspeaks.com, and that's Sheryl with an S. So sherylgreenspeaks.com, and you can find me on my website, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and actually Twitter are all Sheryl Green Speaks. So connect with me, and I'd love to hear some stories and help you tell better ones.
Very good. As always, thank you very much, Sheryl Green, and we hope to catch you again next week. Thanks.
Awesome.
Make sure you head over to unstuckandhappy.com, where you'll find the video version of all of our podcasts, as well as information about upcoming Unstuck Happiness conferences and moving beyond personal development retreats. Those are amazing. Make sure you join us again next week for another great Unstuck story. And in the meantime, keep living unstuck and happy.